Welcome back to the High Tech Freedom Podcast. My guest today, Sebastian Estades, has had that typical sales career progression. He started off as a BDR, went to inside sales, relocated across the country for a field sales role, and then recently moved into sales management. I really enjoyed this discussion because Sebastian talked about that challenge of going from that inside sales role, which you've done that role where you have the office structure and you have the team around you, to the field sales role, a role where he moved from one corner of the country to another and was essentially on his own. He talks about the need for self-motivation, some of the challenges and lessons learned as he figured out his field sales style and really how to prioritize his time to ultimately drive productivity. In the inside role, many of those priorities are set for you, X number of calls, X number of conversations, et cetera, but not so much in the field sales role. We also touched on how this experience now helps him be a better sales leader to his team. So I hope you enjoy the episode. If you have enjoyed previous episodes, I would like to ask for your help. Please give the show a 5-star rating and leave a comment in your favorite podcast app. It really helps to get the show more visible to more people. Thank you so much. Welcome to the High Tech Freedom Podcast. This is a podcast where we bring successful tech sales professionals, thought leaders, and entrepreneurs to share best practices, insights, and lessons learned with other tech sales professionals. As a sales professional, the more we learn, the more we earn. Once we earn it, how can we put those hard-earned commission dollars back to work to build additional income streams that will create the freedom we are all working to achieve? I'm your host, Chris Freeman. I'm a high-tech sales leader, real estate investor, and lifetime learner. All right, Sebastian. Hey, man, welcome to the High Tech Freedom Podcast. So excited to have you on.
I'm very excited to be here, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure is all mine. So, Sebastian, your intro will be in the show notes and your bio, but just for the sake of a little bit of background, tell us about yourself. What are you doing now? And
yeah, happy to. So, I'm currently the RVP of West Sales here at iGel. It's a software company that has a secure operating system for cloud workspaces. I've been in the IT high tech segment in sales for a little over 10 years, and recently moved back to Florida from being out on the West Coast. I have a lovely wife who's also in high tech sales and as a sales rep, and a beautiful baby boy, 18 months old, that really is the purpose in everything I do every day.
Awesome. I mean, oftentimes that is why we do what we do, right? It's for the family, for the kids. So you and I first met. You had just moved out from Southern Florida to Portland, Oregon, and you had made that move from inside sales to field sales, and it was your first field sales role with that particular company. And that's a pretty big move. And I was just kind of curious, when making that move from kind of the corporate mother office to being a lone person on an island out in a territory, what was how did that go? What were some of the lessons learned or any of the surprises or challenges you had to face in making that jump?
First off, I want to say, thankfully, the company did provide a great foundation and a great enablement path, right, to get those moving to the field ready for that. But with that said, there's definitely challenges I feel that a lot of people don't talk about. And personally, moving clear cross country, probably the farthest I could be outside of being in Seattle. It was a challenge on a personal side, being that far away from home and that far away from family and friends and building new friendships. On the professional side, really the main challenges I had were in some days finding the motivation to go do that next right thing. Right. It's very easy when you go into an office and you have your coworkers around you making dials and doing the things that you're doing and having morning huddles, to then going to the field where you're on an island working from home. In my case, in Portland, there weren't many other folks in my company at work there that were in the same city as me. it was a challenge to really, sometimes find a motivation to do the things you needed to do. So, the other challenge was the travel. I wasn't used to traveling as much as I did in that role. And that kind of bled into managing my time and making sure that I wasn't working around the clock. So initially, I'd say the first year or two, I worked way too much. Probably, I was high activity, but maybe not so much high productivity, right? I was doing many different things that if I look back, maybe I could have done half those things and still would have had the same performance, right? So it was just learning what was worth my time was a big challenge too. So those are some of the high level, pieces that thinking back, right, were my challenges when I moved out to the field.
Yeah, that last point is it's such a great point because I talked to quite a few inside sales reps, BDR people. Sometimes when I'm interviewing for roles, the people that are looking to make that jump, and everybody, I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of them want to get into the field, right? They want that next jump. It's natural, right? They want that career move. And I've also had the opportunity to talk to ones that have done it, and very similar to you, they they feel like things are going great because they're so darn busy. But when they start looking at the outcome, it's not necessarily there. And that's one of the challenges when you get out into that environment that's less structured. There's a lot of people that may demand your time. Business partners will ask for stuff. Customers will have urgent things that maybe they need you to go chase down. But, if it's not driving revenue, how do you build that into your schedule? And so that's one of the things when I'm interviewing and I'm looking and I'm talking to reps, I'm always trying to figure out those people that can work with a high level of productive activity, right? Busy's not productive. So it's a great point. The other thing that you mentioned is, that motivation piece. So what were some of the things that maybe you did to once you kind of figured out that, hey, this is different? What were some of the things you did to kind of kick it into gear to keep yourself going and go chase it every day?
Yeah. So one of my mentors, again, I'm blessed to have had great mentors. When I was an inside rep, I had, somebody I still speak to today on a regular basis, my field rep that I mapped to, right, that really helped me out and showed me the ropes and challenged me. And, one of the things I learned from him was creating, everyone talks about vision boards, right? But, specific to work, it's more around what attainment do I want to have that year? And I wrote it down on a whiteboard or in my home office, right? And I'd see it every single day. This is where I want to be, right? And in addition to that, what are the accounts that I know I want to get into or I want to close a big deal with? And I'd write those down. It was just a constant reminder of this is what I'm working towards. And that's what helped me, just being able to see that every single day. And when I had those little wins that got me closer to those goals, I'd celebrate those any chance I got with, at the time, my fiance, we'd celebrate, the little wins, every deal we, crack a bottle open of wine and celebrate. Right. And that helped me keep going. And cause it's very hard to get demotivated and down on yourself if you're like, you might have a win, but you're still 80% away from your quota for the year. Right. And you got to kind of, reward yourself for those little wins and those micro steps that get you closer to the ultimate goal. So that's what really helped me initially. And, just to get that positive kind of reinforcement for what I was doing every day and every week.
I'm so glad you mentioned the celebrating the wins. I actually did a solo episode earlier on this because I'm not great at that, or I hadn't been great at that as a rep. Just like your example there, I was more relieved to get the deal done. And then I was on to the next one that I never stopped to really enjoy the moment of winning that deal. And man, that is so important because you'll just grind yourself out of the business if you don't do that.
Yeah, you will. It's very easy to do that in our business.
Well, I'm curious. So on the topic of vision boards, I totally agree with that. It's, there's something at work, something in your personal life. It's what gets you up every morning and keeps you going. And, I have it's in my other office, I have a board that has just a bunch of different stuff over the next 5 to 10 years that I want to do or accomplish or experience, vacations, family, all kinds of fun stuff. And so sometimes when I'm walking by, it's like that. Yeah, that just reminds me that's why I'm doing this. I'm frustrated now, but the frustration will pass. And that's ultimately what I'm shooting for. But I am curious, Sebastian, what's on the board today? What are you shooting for?
Great question. On the board today is, buying an investment property sometime in the next 5 years, going on, a major vacation every year. So specifically, we love to go to Japan very soon, challenging with an 18-month-old. So we'll have to figure that out. And, that's, the other piece too, is getting to a point where, my more on a personal side, my mother could stop working, right? And hopefully, getting to a place where we could help her and get a place so she could stop working. So that's kind of the things that we talk to, that's on the vision board that we're working towards, right, as a family and me as an individual. So those are the things that are top of mind, at least.
Before we jump into the topic, I wanted to let you know that we just launched a monthly drawing for one of our insulated high-tech Freedom tumblers. Now, I've been sending these out as a thank you gift to each of our guests, and the response has been great. Everyone has a full-size coffee cup, a Yeti, or whatever brand that they might use, but not everybody has the small tumbler that you can put your wine or beverage of choice in. And they're great for the deck, beach, camping, or just keeping your drink warm or cold. Now, I'm not selling these, but I am excited about them. So we decided to offer these up to the loyal podcast listeners by doing a monthly drawing. So if you're interested, go to hightechfreedom.com/mug, that's MUG, and you'll see a picture of the tumbler and you can enter. We'll just collect your name, phone number, and email. And if you do win, we'll then follow up and ask for your mailing address so we know where to send it. If you don't win, your name stays in, so you don't need to re-enter. Well, switching gears a little bit. So you made the jump from the field sales role to a sales manager and recently into a area VP, and then also moved back from Portland to Southern Florida. I'm sure that must be nice to get closer to your mom and back to your roots. But, what are some of the things that you've learned as you're building out a new team in a new role and kind of growing your business down in Southern Florida?
Yeah, so it's been quite a ride. I was asked to move into a role to build out an office for iGel, which I'm currently in right now, and build out a whole brand new team of SDRs, inside reps, and then we segmented our business to commercial and enterprise a little over a year ago. So I was at the forefront of planning that and carving out territories and setting quotas and identifying candidates. And, the first part of last year was honestly, a lot of my job was hiring and onboarding. I hired and onboarded 16 people, right, amongst those three different roles. So, that was a great experience. And then my focus was narrowed in August to just the commercial sellers. So I had them the whole year, but it was narrowed down because I had way too many people under me. And from that point, that's where I really started getting, I'd say, more ingrained and more focused on the sales leadership piece day to day, right? Because I had the bandwidth to do so. But the transition to leadership has been super rewarding. I've always wanted to get to this point. I've kind of planned out. I'm a big planner. I've had this vision of getting to a leadership role and did all the right things, right, by going and, I got my MBA at University of Oregon while working full time. And it was great to get that instant, literally, a few months after graduating, I had this opportunity, thankfully, with iGel. So, but the transition, I'd say, the biggest thing for me is it's been rewarding seeing and helping develop talent and giving people the opportunity, especially with the inside folks and those guys and gals, giving them the opportunity I was given 11 years ago. And that's what motivated me and got me up in the morning was I could change someone's life, right? And give them an opportunity to build a career, right? That many wish they could have, right? As far as just the quality of life and work from home and income we could all have in high tech. So that's what motivated me and really got me, excited about every day. The challenges I've had, I think, is, being that I was a top performing rep, I've had to learn to understand that everybody has their style. And I've had to learn to not be a diminishing leader in a sense of this is how you should do it, but more embracing the different ways that people approach the role. And as long as they're hitting the challenges we give them and the goals we're giving them, it doesn't matter how they do it. So, letting them, not being a control freak basically was one of my challenges initially, especially being at a company where I was a rep and moved to leadership versus going to a new company where I don't understand the technology, don't understand the processes and why customers, move forward with us. I feel like a different challenge. And again, if I went to different companies as a sales leader, I wouldn't necessarily have that as much of that challenge. So that's really, in summary, what I've experienced moving into leadership over the last year. So,
what's one skill that you've had to really adjust besides, the general letting people run? Is there a skill that you had to adjust going from the sales to the sales leadership role?
Absolutely. Coaching. That's been my big focus. How can I be a better coach? How can I be a better leader? I'm currently reading a book and we just went through training actually here on sales leadership around being a multiplier, right? So how can I be a better coach has been really my biggest focus over the last 9 months to a year, because I think there's so many things that we could talk about as leaders when we have these one-on-ones with reps. There's many different things we could go after, but how do you break those things down to like actionable things that could be done within a week or two, right? So picking and choosing, if they need help with discovery, what about discovery specifically are they having challenges with, and how can I coach them to that versus talking about discovery calls as a whole, picking out the specific things they're having challenges with and coaching them on that. So I think that's been my biggest skill set that I've been working on is getting better at coaching so that I could see, help them be a better version, right, of themselves in their role.
Yeah. Well, good for you. That'll pay huge dividends down the road, later on down the road for your team and for you. So Sebastian, what about shifting gears a little bit on the pipeline building front? So, you've been a rep, you've got a team, always trying to grow. I'm always trying to learn share what are you seeing out there? What's working around some of the best practices for building pipeline right now?
Great question, Chris. So we implemented a tool here, Outreach, and we've learned a lot from that. But I will say, in looking back and as we reflected on last year, I think the biggest pipeline building exercise, or the best way to build pipeline, at least for us in our market, is via our channel partners, honestly. So that's where we have the highest success rate. Luckily, we're a 100% channel driven company. And being a small company like Agile, for us personally, it's been really building those relationships with our go-to-market partners and understanding where they have their customers and how can we work together to fulfill what their customers are trying to accomplish, right? That's been our best route for pipeline. With that said, outside of that, I think the other thing we really learn is less is more. I think one of the challenges we had here specifically was, we have this great new tool and people were putting thousands of contacts into these automatic cadences. And the reality is, we all get those emails, we all ignore them. It doesn't really do anything. We've had very little success with that. So the big focus now that we've been shifting to is less is more, high quality, identify contacts, spend more time getting to know their company, getting to know their business and their challenges, right? And craft more of a message that would provide value to an individual and use different mediums like sales and LinkedIn and email and calls. But that's been the big focus. And we've had higher success rates with that, being more strategic and slowing down a bit, right? And really thinking about how can I provide value to this customer? What would get them to potentially be interested in learning more? So that's what we've seen here over the past year.
I love it. Well, on the less is more point, man, that sounds like a lot of work, Sebastian. Why can't I just stick it in a tool and let the tool do the work?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we've had to train. Unfortunately, we over rotated on the tool because it was a new tool. And then we're realizing, hey, we need to pump the brakes and kind of rethink how we're using this tool. So
yeah. Well, I really like that point about the less is more, because in the digital world and the information world, it's just a bombardment now of information. And I'm sure I'm guilty of doing it as well. But people are people, right? And people want to connect. And when you take that time to research the company, research the person, really craft messaging, either whether it's an email or even the messaging you're going to use when you sit down with that client for that first meeting, it is so much more powerful when it's customized and researched and prepared versus, some canned approach that, you launch to every one of your contacts. It's hard, takes work, but that's what the A players do.
Exactly. That's what we do. So,
well, as we wrap up here, if you were to go back and tell the early Sebastian some lessons learned, what would you go back and tell yourself to do differently?
Don't take things too seriously, and always prioritize your health and yourself first. I think early in my career, I was so fixated on climbing a ladder that it came at the sacrifice of other elements of my life, my health, relationships, so on and so forth. And I think as I got more into my career and I found my way and found how to be successful and I knew what I was doing, I felt more calm and, felt like I could actually detach from work and not feel like work runs my life. So looking back, if I were to tell myself, I'd say, hey, let's make sure we're working hard, but we are also focused on improving these other elements of your life.
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. Well, Sebastian, is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience?
No, I think we covered most of it. Thank you, Chris, for taking the time today. And it was great.
Yeah, my pleasure. And if anybody would like to reach out or connect with Sebastian, we'll have his LinkedIn link in the show notes, and look forward to speaking with you next week. Thanks, Sebastian.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks again for joining us today. To get more sales and real estate tips, you can subscribe to our newsletter at hightechfreedom.com. You can also join our private Facebook and LinkedIn group that is exclusively for sales professionals. If you found a nugget of good information in the podcast, please subscribe, give us a positive rating, and write a review. If there is a topic that you would like us to cover in the future, please send us a note through our website at hightechfreedom.com. Until next week, make this your best week ever.